Saturday morning, folks, 9:30, and as usual, it's the Fife Property Show. So right across the market, this is where we look at all the housing. We give you the best advice on what to do and the top tips on what to do in each area from some of the best people in a estate agency. So today we're going to be talking about the article, Magic Moments. Make your home an unforgettable viewing experience in the Fife region. That's the key here. It's about making your home an unforgettable viewing experience. And the reason for that is because people will always remember your home, and potentially they might come back to it as a result of moving on to another. And eventually, if they discounted it in the beginning, it's possible they might come back to it at the end. Kind of just like shopping. You end up going round and looking at everything, and you buy the one that you went to in the first place. Lo and behold, or so my wife does. And on the show today, let's introduce some people. So we've got Perrie McIntosh. Hello, Perrie. How are you?
I'm fantastic, Jim. Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
And Jimmy Mullen. Jimmy, how are you today?
All is well.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, great stuff. Listen, guys, you've looked at the article, you've read the things and that. I mean, how do you feel about this? Making your viewing experience unforgettable. Is that the most important thing we should be doing when we take people around? Is it the magical moment at the end? Is it people to remember it? You know, what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, certainly for me, when I'm doing viewings with clients, and I use really my own experience in this, as everyone knows from previous shows, I'm currently house hunting, and yeah, it has been a bit of a mix and match, to be honest, and it becomes a bit of a muddle and a blur, and you're not really quite sure, did that house have this? Did this house have that? Which one was it again that had that? And did it tick all the boxes? So it gets a bit mixed up. So for me, what I try to do when I'm taking people around to view properties is try and keep that wow, unforgettable piece till the end, because at the beginning they're going in and there'll be certain elements that they'll identify themselves, and then I will always say, this is my favorite room, and explain why it's my favorite room, and then people go, God, yeah, I know what you mean, and that's the bit that remains with them when they leave. So actually then it doesn't become unforgettable.
Yeah, good morning, Tony. How are you? Feel free to ask questions, folks. We're more than happy to answer your questions live on the show. I mean, it's like this. Have you ever drunk a smoothie? I mean, they're wonderfully delicious, but it can be quite challenging to identify each individual flavour when you think about it. I mean, you've got strawberry, you've got spinach, you've got ginger, you've got honey, or maybe that's just my smoothies.
I wouldn't drink that one.
But really, they're all vying for your attention, aren't they? But you can't really single one thing out. I mean, house hunting's a little bit like that. I mean, evenings and weekends full of viewings and meeting estate agents can make homes begin to blur as the numbers mount up. And recalling all the different rooms, it really can be an impossible task. You know, it can't it, Jimmy?
Yeah, 100%. It's about that. But I would say, in terms of unforgettable experience, you have the rooms and the wow factor moments, but you got to make sure the agent knows the area as well, just in case the viewer isn't local. And the wow moments about how much there is to do in the area and what activities they could have for friends, family, to come into visit as well. What they don't even know might be on the doorstep, because we had someone in the office yesterday going to do his masters at St Andrews for a few years. They were talking about they had £1,000 a month to rent, but then they were like, I don't know if I actually want to stay in St Andrews because it's so expensive. And I started talking about Cooper and what we have and what's happening, the train station, how you can commute everywhere, and how much more he can get for his money, and then his family can come up and stay as well. So you have your wow moments in the property, but you need to be able to tell them about the area as well.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that, Jimmy. I had a situation yesterday, as some of you will have seen, we've got a beautiful property coming on that's just come on in Foreman Road, and I have a lady who had seen that property on Rightmove, but hadn't yet clicked on the video. She's relocating from Edinburgh. She's a foster person. She's works for Fife Council, etc., but she doesn't really know the area at all. And she said, oh, it looks really nice, but I want to ask about parking. And all she was focused on was the parking. So I kind of gave her some guidance on that. But then I said, but, you know, do you know the area? She said, no. And I said, well, actually, see if you go to the end of the road and turn right, you're right on the beach. And through the discussions, we started talking about the schools. We started talking about recreation, because she will have primary children. She'll have young adults, so there'll be a mix of age groups. I must have chatted to her for about 10 minutes, exploring the area and the different types of schools and what there was to do in the nature parks that we have, etc., Silverburn and so forth. And she was, by the end of the 10 minutes, she says, oh my God, she says, I feel like I want to live in that house already, and I haven't even been to see it because it sounds so perfect. So she's already got that in her head. She will never forget that property. If she goes to it and she loves it, fantastic. But if she doesn't, she will remember why, and she'll remember the area. So she won't get muddled, which is what we're trying to unscrabble, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to. It's other things as well. So when you've tidied, decluttered and cleaned to perfection, you can make a home one that buyers always remember as a result. You know, but you're absolutely right. Well, classic example, let's go back to that property. Everybody talks about the parking, but what they don't realise is the owners actually have their 2 cars right across the house from them, right on the street. So that's the 2 parking. So if they buy the house and the owners move away, there's 2 empty spaces across the road.
Yeah, exactly.
It's bizarre. It's bizarre how people just write things off. And one of the failings I would say about Rightmove is the fact that they don't allow the video to come in straight away. They actually hide it somewhere. And that, for me and for us, is probably the key indicator here, because people outside the area and people don't know the area, video gives them a good feel for what's round about them, and also the talk up as well and round the property. So I think that's the key thing that they should play, and that's why we have that as our first thing that comes up on our website. You know, the first thing you do is when you click through is you see video straight away.
And that's what I did with the lady as well. I directed her to our Facebook page and also the website. And she messaged me latterly to say that she'd watched the video and she was very excited about going to see it. And I think that is the difference, because, and she'd actually indicated to me, she says, when I saw the video, she says, I actually felt like I'd already been in the property. I just had a great feel from it, because it's not like standard videos where it's just music in the background and it kind of sways you around the house. You're actually getting to get to the heart of the property and see how it's been loved and looked after and cared for, and it gives you that feeling already.
I mean, it's key when someone, I remember someone said, I'm sure it's an American poet, May. I mean, I've said it in here. I mean, people forget what you say, and people forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you make them feel. And that's the key. It's about how you make them feel about a property. This is all about feelings. It's all about emotions. It's all about that, what it does for you, that property. That's what drives price. That's what drives activity. That's what drives demand. It's not pictures and a description.
No, it's the connection, isn't it? It's that connection that you have with something. I mean, this is one of the most expensive things that people will do, is buy their family home. Yeah. So it has to feel good. And we can help that along the way, that journey, can't we, with the things that we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, I can give you a 3-bedroom semi-detached house with 2 receptions in central Eden. Wow, okay. But I can tell you right down the road is where the train station's going to go, and it's going to allow you to get on the train and get to Edinburgh and back in a matter of hours. So you can do that straight away. You can go anywhere you want. And then can I tell you as well, right round the corner, you've got the beach, exactly what you said. And right round the corner from that, a short distance away, you've got the golf course. So you can be playing golf as well. And then up into Silverburn, you've got the Silverburn Forest, where you can actually relax and take time out and chill and play with the children and have fantastic experiences and just these wow moments that you'll never get back. You know, once they've got them, you've got them. And that's what an area will give you, and that's what a property will give you. It's not bricks and mortar. It's the feeling.
It is the feeling. I had another lady, the property that was sold in Orchard House. Again, it was someone from out of area who were relocating here for health issues to have a better life. And when we did the tour of the property, I mean, the property sold itself anyway, because the features that were in there were fantastic and they could see what they could make it become. But they didn't know the area. It was a Saturday that I took them, and the lady, as we were chatting, I found out what mattered to them. What did they like doing? What was interesting for them, to try and promote what was surrounding the property. And they were very much into their golf and into walking in the nature parks, etc. So I basically said to them, well, if you've got time, then, and I have time, my time is yours. I drove down to Leaving to the Glen, and they followed me to the Glen, and I showed them what that nature park was like. I then drove down to the beach and I walked along the beach to them, and they actually ended up going to LGS for lunch because they decided they'd stay for lunch because they really liked it. And afterwards, she actually messaged me privately and said this was like any other viewing that she'd ever experienced. She actually felt like I was her host, and it made it really memorable for her. And that's what it's all about, as you say. It's like that connection and making that memory. And that's what I believe the whole package was what then gave them the choice to make the home their choice.
So how do we make the home inside then a memory? I mean, let's talk about the living room, for example. Feature the highlights in the living room. What is the most important parts of the living room that you could feature to give people that emotional experience?
Certainly with the recent properties that we've listed, the one in Links Road, for instance, that we sold recently, that particular property, it was all those little features that it had in the lounge. It was the big windows, it was the cornicing, it was the fireplace, it was the wooden flooring. It's all those things that people connect with because it's sensory, isn't it? It's not just your eyes that see that. You're thinking of the fire when it's on and the smells that creates. So it's all of those things together, isn't it?
It's funny, you know, there's a classic example. You're thinking of the fire it's on and the smells it creates, and immediately a smile came across my face.
Yeah, exactly, because it's a pleasurable thing.
I went back and thought about that, and it evoked emotion within my memory. Therefore, that's exactly what we do in terms of why we do it in video.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's connectivity, isn't it? And it's bringing back that emotion and that smile, and that's where, as Jimmy was saying earlier, it's not just about knowing the property and the area, but absolutely the agent needs to be the expert on that house and that area, because that is what, you know, you can walk into a room and walk out of a room, and some of these properties are empty, so it's hard to make them look great. So, you know, and it's hard to create those emotions and those memories because no furnishings in there. But it's those things like the fireplace, the cornicing, the original wooden doors. If you know they've been dipped and stripped, let people know they've been dipped and stripped, so they get that feeling of wood. And again, it's that warm connection, isn't it?
And it's as well as you could write down log burner in the description, and it's log burner. But if you talk about log burner and then sitting in front of it on a cozy winter's day, while the flames are roaring and possibly you're toasting marshmallows, it evokes a completely different emotion, doesn't it?
It does do. And the ladies that went to see that particular property, that was empty, but there was a double door that went out into the garden, into one of the study rooms at the back. And we were talking about that, and that had a lovely fire in it as well. That was a working fire. And we talked about the fire. And when we were talking about the description, I said, you know, imagine an October morning and you're opening your windows. It's a little bit of a chill in there, but you've got your nice coffee. You can sit on your terrace and you've got your fire going in the background, and the smells and the coffee and the birds and the trees and the wind and the sound of the sea across the road and all of these things. The women, you could just see the grin getting bigger and bigger because she was totally connecting with that. Yeah.
Jimmy, what's your thoughts? You just sat and smiled all the way through this. He saw himself. I could imagine he saw himself sitting in front of that fire.
No, we wouldn't have a time. Would be too many kids running around the place.
Oh, but Zara would be well toasting those marshmallows. I'll tell you that for nothing.
I would say, obviously, all that is key, but obviously as well, you got to know who your buyer is, and lead them to that part of the house, which is going to be the key feature, and make sure the bits that you know about, you're leading them, and as Perry already said at the start, leading them there, finishing there, and pointing out all the key moments. For someone like myself, we don't have it here, but what I would love a property with like an open plan kitchen sort of lounge area with patio doors leading into the back garden. That's something that I would love to look for hosting, and letting them run around where me and Charlotte could still relax, but then know and see them in the back garden, sort of thing. So that's something that I would look for, and I'm sure people are different, but you got to know. And as Perry did at Orchard House, she knew what was important to them, took them on that journey, and they bought the property. This doesn't always happen by chance, that your buyer falls on your door. It's good marketing, knowing the area, knowing the property, and knowing your buyer, and then taking them on that journey. Everything, it's not just luck that these results happen.
You've probably just picked up on that point exactly. You can often attract someone who would otherwise not respond to an advert, purely for the fact that the way you talk about it and the way you describe it and how it comes across in that emotive way.
Yeah, and I've had that many times where people are rung up inquiring about certain properties. They're telling me what their requirements are, and I know I've been to that property, and I'm saying that one probably isn't for you, what you're telling me, just being honest with them. But we've got this one in that's ticking more of your boxes. And they say, oh, okay, that's brilliant, I'll go and see that one as well. They still want to go and see the other one as well, because they probably think I'm talking a bunch of lies. But when they get there, a lot of the times I've sold them a different property to one that they were originally inquiring about, because I know what I've listened to them on the phone and know what their requirements are, and I've took them there and took them on the journey to know what they require.
I mean, there's no doubt the living room has to be the main part of the area, because that's where you'll spend most of your time. So you're absolutely right. It is about getting things like, if you do have, well, classic reception rooms, open plan, space, view to the garden, showcasing inherent character. It's the dipped and stripped doors. It's the, you know, natural woodwork. It's the roaring fireplaces. I mean, especially if you've got a time where it's a bit chillier, then you want to get the fire on as quick as possible for people coming round, because that crackling sound just sets people off, and that emotive smells and just that feeling overall that it gives people is perfect. I mean, it's a seductive time of year. I mean, you could have chunky logs sitting at the side in your basket, and candlesticks and ceramics on the mantelpiece as well. I mean, that could be perfect for out of season. In other words, if you don't put the fire on, then candlesticks and ceramics and wee candles going here and there, and just these smells that you get from lavender and cinnamon and vanilla and all these essences. It set off all these instinctive responses in people that they don't realize is happening. I mean, let's be honest, it's exactly what the shops do. You know, often when you walk in the door, they put scent distributors at certain points. They've done that for years, just to set off your emotions when you're going to look at something on the shelf. Were you aware of that, Jimmy?
I was I don't know what show it was. I forgot who the host is.
Yeah.
Can't remember. But
yeah, it's one of these, like, it's the Greg that does MasterChef or something like that. The Greg that does like maybe the walkthrough in the manufacturing facilities and stuff like that. Well, they do it for the shops, and then they show you exactly what they do in shops in order to do that. I mean, other ones as well as glazed doors to gardens. Make sure they're all clean. Make sure your windows are all clean. If you've got a stunning view from that room, then make sure all the windows are clean. Make sure you don't have any blown panes. Listen, it's about £100 to get a pane, a double glazed pane, actually replaced in a unit, and that £100 or £150 will be well spent, because it gives that distinct impression that you've looked after the property. Whereas if you leave it and just think, well, it's only 150 quid, the next person could do that, it fires off that, you know, that wee thing in somebody's mind to say, if that's a problem, then are they bothered about anything else?
That's actually a really valid point that you're making, because I had a client who looked at a property, and their feedback to me was that there was a couple of things about the property that didn't quite ring correctly from them the way it was finished. And they said, it just got me thinking, if those two things weren't that great, then see the things that were done, how good were they done? And he said it just made me question it. And then suddenly he was out of the potential of buying that property, because it had sown that seed. And then, as well as having positive memory, you can create a negative memory as well, can't you? And that's what that had done. And before he knew it, all his dominoes were going, and that was it. There was no coming back from that particular one.
The classic one about the classic botcher. You know, there's, I mean, it doesn't happen very often, but there is people out there that think they're brilliant at DIY, and they go around and botch every single job done in order to just get it done. But it's not done to how it should be done, and therefore the next person that comes in, that fires off these emotions straight away, doesn't it, Perry?
It certainly does, and I've had that experience myself. You know, this isn't just me talking as an agent. This is me talking as someone who's buying property. And I've gone in, and there was one particular property that I went to see recently, and I loved the bathroom on the videos and in the pictures. And then when I got in there, I thought the light switch was wobbly, and then there was a tile missing in the corner, and then I started really looking at everything, and then suddenly I could feel myself reversing from the room, and that's again where that negative experience comes from, which is what we're not wanting to create. But as Jimmy said earlier as well, it's about knowing your buyer. And certainly one of the things that we do as a team, we all do it, is when we've got someone who's registering with us, one of the things that we always ask is, what is the perfect home for you? What is the special thing that makes you want to buy a home? What is the special thing that you're looking for? And that helps Jimmy and I and the rest of the team be able to guide them to those properties. As Jimmy said, you know, they might want to see one and they go, well, hang on, wait till you see this one. Again, we recently sold one in Leven, Allen Cottage, and I took quite a few people to see that. And then as soon as Foreman was listed, I was straight on the phone to these people to say, are you still looking? what is it you're thinking? Because this is now available. And it's because I knew them and I knew what they were looking for. I knew that there was elements of that particular property that would tick all of their boxes. So it's understanding what people are looking for and creating that memory around that need.
So what do we do about small spaces? How do we give the little rooms the big star treatment? You know, how do we do that? I mean, nobody needs to go roller skating in a spare bedroom. They'll concentrate on the fabulous feel and clearly a defined role. Having a dedicated home office, for example, guest room, study, nursery, small spaces, larger sense of purpose and value. You know, is that the thought?
I think it is that. I think there's a danger as well, though, with small spaces, is that you put small things in it. So if you put miniature things in a small space, then suddenly you're telling everybody that the space is even smaller than the small space, which creates a negative memory, doesn't it? So I think it's maximising the space that you have in the best way and showing how it can function for you. I think that is the key, making it a functionable space. And certainly to declutter that space, to make that space look bigger. Not necessarily putting smaller furniture in to make it look bigger, because actually that has the adverse effect.
Yeah, I would say a lot of people as well on small rooms, they either have so much stuff in it that it looks small, or they leave it completely empty that makes it look small as well. You need to sort of stage it quite well, and the agent will need to sort of know the buyer and discuss what it is, what the buyer could potentially use it for, and try and find out who the decision maker is that's viewing. Like if it's a couple and then you're getting the vibe that the lady is the decision maker, you can discuss it as being like a walk-in wardrobe for her or something like that. Or if it's the man, it's the home office or the game room, or if it's the children, it's going to be a
stereotyping.
I'm just throwing stuff out there.
You're just throwing out ideas, Joey.
And I've probably got more clothes than Charlotte. That'll be my walk-in wardrobe if it was me. All my golf stuff.
But it's true though. I mean, home office. I mean, classic is the single bedrooms. Normally, people will probably use them as a home office or even just a nursery to begin with, because that's what we did originally. I mean, we had a double bedroom in our first flat, and it had just a wee tiny room at the back, but we used it as a nursery to begin with, and then upgraded from there later on. But that's all it was really good for. And then I used, believe it or not, I converted the understairs cupboard into a study office, where I studied my accountancy under the stairs. Harry Potter, eat your heart out.
Did you sometimes get locked in there, Jim, when there was peace required?
I would say one property that we got on when we're talking about making use of spaces and stuff like that. One property that comes to mind right now, Jim, is what we got on the market, which is going really well in terms of interest. Is we've got Glendale. Look at that property and how the quality of finish there and how it's going and how they've utilised the space with home office under the stairs there, the cupboard that they've sort of knocked through a little bit and made use of that space and got it as like another home office, but they've got a bed in there now. That's what you.
And then the cupboard,
you go and have a look at that one, and that's how you should stage your property.
I mean that is a classic example. I mean, it's like night and day with the two we've got up there. One is actually a lower flat, and one's the upper, or they're maybe both the same. I can't remember, but it's amazing the different price point they have. But I tell you what, I would go for the one that's completely finished.
Yeah, the lower and upper one have totally done them different. Yeah.
And in terms of mortgageability as well, it's easy to mortgage that all up for a first-time buyer. Whereas if you've got to buy something at a lower rate and then you've got to spend the money, then you don't get that back from the bank till later on, unless you on an advanced loan once you've actually outlaid the money. But where are you going to get the money in the first place to do the refurb if you're a first-time buyer? So they do have different markets and different appeal. But for me as a first-time buyer, I probably want to go for a finished product and have everything immaculate. But that has everything to grow into. Quite comfortably that property itself.
They've got 3 or 4 children, so you can stay, and they've been there for over 20 years, I believe. So
it's a beautiful home.
So I mean, that's a classic example of what you can afford, affordability. I mean, what's on it offers over 8 to 8. Yeah. So there you go. I mean, if I was had that, well, I'll be honest, that's what we did in the beginning. I moved from a big, huge, massive house to a 3-bedroom flat in Taylor Street, which was 27,500. And it's like it was a no-brainer for me because my mortgage was then down at £120 a month. So I was £120 a month. All the money I had in my hand was basically cash, and I was able to reinvest it in everything else.
So is that what we did?
Today. All because I took that one step back into a smaller property in an area which people actually thought was undesirable, but I didn't say anything wrong with it. I lived there for 5 years, and it's still a good area, and it's actually right next to the new train station. I still own it.
I think you're right. It's about utilisation of space, but also with those small spaces where you can't kind of change them because it is a square room and that's what it is. It's about that wow factor you can create. So it's about having. I did it in my house in Cypress Lane, Jim, when you sold it. Our downstairs WC was a tiny little room, but we put on one wall really dramatic wallpaper that actually made that room look much, much bigger. So again, it was a statement piece that you went in, you kind of went wow, and you were focused on that rather than how small the room was. And then that kind of flowed through all of the property. So it's about creating that space and making it look nice. And yes, you can buy expensive wallpaper, but if you only need to buy 2 rolls of it to make a room stand out, it goes back to the blown window thing, doesn't it? Spend £60 on 2 rolls of wallpaper to actually potentially make that room sellable. And it does make a big difference. And it's those little things I think that do make people warm to a house.
I'm a big fan of mirrors in these in rooms that don't have windows, because it makes it feel like there's a window, and it actually makes the room feel bigger as well as a result.
It does, definitely. Again, if you've got a narrow room but it might be long, that's where mirrors really can play a big part in a room. Yeah,
perfect. Jimmy, final thoughts on the smaller rooms?
Yeah, we'll just stage them to the best of your ability. Probably speak to your agent about who's most likely to buy your property and stage it to that, whether it be family or working from home family, whatever it may be. Have something in there, but not too much. Try to find the right balance, if that makes sense.
Right. So let's go on to bedrooms then. Let's talk about bedrooms. I mean, bedrooms are the most private and personal spaces, but when it comes to finding a buyer, they need to be a welcoming in the world, really. I mean, what's the best advice for bedrooms?
I would say.
Okay.
Sorry, carry on, Perry.
No, on you go, Jimmy.
I would say if they have fitted wardrobes, that's always a big plus. And then for the master, I would make sure that you can probably both put. I don't like bedrooms that are set up where the bed can pushed right up to the wall or in a corner, but that makes it look really small. If you have it in the middle and try and have your bedside tables to show how big it is, and that you can get bedside tables, and then with your wardrobe on the separate wardrobe where you can both have your clothes on there separate, that makes it look bigger, and you have your walking space around it. If I see a bed is pushed right up against the wall, so that means they're trying to show all the rest of the space. So,
do you ever walk into a hotel and think to yourself, I wish I could get my bedroom like this?
Yes, quite often. I actually did that. And again, going back to the Cypress property that we had, we did that, Jim, didn't we? When you saw that room, you were like, oh, wow. Because we've got quite a old-fashioned kind of Victorian bed, but it's got the huge headboard, and it's got the material on the headboard and all the nice carvings and wood and things like that. But that was like the statement piece in the room, and everything else was built around that. The only thing is, again, it's not that I want to stereotype, but again, women have a thing for accessorizing, don't we, ladies? And so we like our cushions and our throws and our rugs and everything, and it almost takes you 20 minutes to get into bed at night because you're going to take all this stuff off. But it does look great. And so, yeah, I think making that a statement piece in a room really does help.
Yeah.
And again, the mirror thing works as well. So if you do have mirrored wardrobes, if you're fortunate enough to have those in the room, again, it can create that kind of double space look, because you're extending the vision of a room, rather than, as Jimmy said, putting a bed up against a wall and making it smaller.
So is it all about the bed?
I think it is, because it's a bedroom, isn't it?
Yep.
I would say the bed and storage, because a lot of people, I hear a lot of people saying, I can't buy this. My furniture's not going to fit. Is the key, is a lot of people's reasons for not progressing with their house. So you need to make sure it's staged correctly, in terms of where the bed is situation. For me, a big one would be wardrobes, where I'm going to put those, and can I get enough in there to store store my clothes. So that would be the two key things that I would be looking for.
There's nothing more off-putting than not having a headboard on a bed. Because you just see the cushion, the pillows go right against the wall. You see the marks on the wall later on, and it just puts people off straight away. So best advice, if you don't have a headboard, just buy a cheap one and put it on anyway.
I would say
something's better than nothing.
I would definitely say so, because I think it does make a bit of a statement, and you can accessorize against that as well, because then whatever you do put there, I think again it goes back to the sensory thing, isn't it? A lot of people now would love to read in bed, that like to kind of do their little kind of relaxation piece. So I think it's important that you've got nice bedside cabinets, nice lamps. You've got that warmness for the winter evenings, but it also makes it look warm in the mornings when it's the bright mornings like that we're having just now. And having perhaps, some nice books laid out to show that it's a kind of lived in space as well, because sometimes you can over accessorize to the point that it looks clinical. So you don't want to do that. You want to make it warm and inviting and show that it's a functioning space and not too clean and clinical.
Yep. Bottoms of the bed. What's your thoughts on that? What do you do with that? Do you put a throw over? I mean, do you put 1,000 pillows on your bed? Do you put a throw over the bed? Do you casually add, different textures to create the comfort and the warm feeling, or do you think there's a point where it just goes overboard?
I think you can go overboard. So I think it is about doing it discreetly and making it inviting. Personally, I do have the pillows, the cushions, the throw at the bottom of the bed. I do like all of that myself, and it does all match, and I think that's a nice feeling. But that's my personal preference. It drives Billy bananas because he's got to kind of declutter it when it's time to go to bed, and he certainly doesn't like making it, put it that way. But I do like it, and I think as well, again, and this will maybe split the audience here, but we have a little dog. He does sleep on the bed with us, and not everybody likes that, I know, but he does with us. And we have his little bed in the room as well. So again, it's showing as a kind of family orientated environment. And when I've shown people homes and they've seen that, some people have went, oh my God, the dog in the bedroom, don't like that. And others have gone, oh, that's lovely, the dog comes in the bedroom, because that's the most important person in the family. So again, it's about making it fit with who's viewing and understanding who's viewing your property and what is their driving emotion about a property, I guess.
Because University Avenue, I mean, I went round there and they said to me, should I get rid of all the dog beds? And the dog beds are better than my bed. Like, I wouldn't get rid of them. They're brilliant. They're miraculous. They're actually immaculate.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't.
It fits perfectly, though.
Yeah, and you can't discount that. I mean, we actually had a lady recently who viewed a property, and as we do, we reach out to get feedback afterwards, and we reached out and we got the feedback on this particular property, and the lady decided not to buy the property because the upstairs bedroom weren't suitable for her kittens. Mm-hmm. The rooms just didn't work for her kittens, and she just didn't think that they would enjoy living in that space, and so she didn't buy the property. So whilst some people may go against having animal products around property, other people, that absolutely is their biggest driver, because they're like their children, and so it's very, very important to them. So again, it's just about understanding your audience, isn't it?
That comes back to understanding, the exact person that's inquiring, and actually making sure you understand what is the need before you actually take them through the door. There's nothing more frustrating for me as going as an investor and going to view a property and then ask a question and they go, you'll have to phone the office on Monday because I'm not really sure. And I'm like, I want to make a decision now. I just want to get on with it. It's going to be a yes or no. And you're almost pushing me to the no straight away. And I almost feel sometimes that I have to go out my way to actually find the answers to what should have been commonplace and they should have known at the time. Probably my most frustrated point is that's why I started an estate agency, is for that very reason, because I just felt that I wasn't getting what I wanted. So I felt that other people would feel the same. Mm-hmm.
You're right, actually. And I think as well, the way the property market is, and again, people out there watching us this morning will agree, the properties just now are going so quick. So if your agent can't give you the answers you need to make decisions, and you've got to wait a few days to get those answers, actually someone else might be in there and already bought it because they don't have that question. And so it absolutely is imperative that your agent, if it's your agent showing the property, or if it's your seller showing the property, because the agent doesn't always show the property. Our sellers do that. So it's not just about educating the people and understanding the people that are coming to view it. It's also part of our process, and our role in this is to educate our sellers and the best way, the do's and don'ts, if you like, to make sure that they get the best outcome for the property. Some people can undershare and some people can overshare, and it's about understanding that balance, isn't it, of what is right to do and what is not right to do, to make sure that we get the outcome that everybody's looking for.
It's also understanding the seller and thinking to yourself, I don't think you should do the viewings.
Yes, sometimes we've had to do that.
And I have said that to some of my sellers. I don't think you should do the viewings because you've taken me around the property, and there is, you know, there's a lot of things I think you're just oversharing. And I don't, you know, it's not key information that the buyer would need to know anyway. I just think that will not switch them in the right direction of the process of leading them down that path to make the decision of a yes or a no. And often I do feel that by answering the wrong question, you could lose thousands of pounds.
Yes. And also the seller as well is invested in a different way with the property, aren't they? So if they've lived there for 20 years, then they are maybe attached and don't really want to sell, but are needing to for whatever their circumstances are creating. Or you might have someone who is just gone in, turned it around and then leaving it, and so it's very cold and concise, and then there's no memory or emotion connected to it. So it's about understanding that balance, isn't it, to get the best outcome, because that's what we're there to do, isn't it, is to drive the foot traffic over the property.
So the best advice I can give a seller watching is, the key information is, remember what it was like for you when you first saw that property, and remember what you loved about that property, because that's exactly what your buyer's going to see. So don't think about what you see now, think about what you saw in the beginning, because again, I'll come back to saying that's what they'll see, and that's what you should be promoting. It's if you made the decision to move there because of the lifestyle and where it was in relation to everything you needed for your growing family, and that's exactly where they are, that's exactly what you should be talking about. If you made a decision to move there because it made sense with the property for certain reasons, then that's exactly what the person is coming around to see it, then that's what you should be talking about. So it's understanding the needs and why people want to do that. Let's talk about gardens. Okay, let's talk about gardens. Night and day gardens and balconies are the icing on the cake at viewings. We know that straight away. I mean, when you go out on a balcony and you look at a view, obviously you're going to put a balcony there because there is a view. Hey, there's a balcony and there's an industrial estate right across the road. No, there's a balcony there for a reason. So whether it's playtime, sunbathing, dining or thinking, or having somewhere outside to unwind, relax and socialise is a valuable commodity in a home. So balconies and decking and gardens are key here. So whatever space you have outdoors, looking for opportunity to enhance, what is the best thing to do?
Oh, for me, it's making it look like a room, isn't it? It's got to be an extension of the house. It can't just be a garden. So it's making it a room. So if you do have furnishings and you're doing your viewings, it's, you know, make sure your cushions are there. Put your lamps there. Get your little candles on outside if you wish to. Have your potted plants in certain areas. Make sure it's de-weeded, decluttered, and looks inviting. And it's creating a feel and a look that is functional. I think as well, at the moment, in regards to property, people are seeing their garden as an extension of their house, and they're seeing it as workable space now because they've been at home for so long now, haven't they? And lockdowns kind of kept us in our homes. If we go back to last March and the lockdown happened, that was the hottest spring that we'd had, wasn't it? So everyone was out in their gardens and enjoying that space. And I think people now have really understood what their garden means to them. How many properties now, Jim and Jimmy, do you both go to when you're doing your market appraisals where they've got outdoor social space?
Yeah.
Your people have created houses within the house in the garden, haven't they?
Yeah. You've got pergolas going up. You've got things like you've got proper enclosures now. You've got cabins out the back. You've got people building home offices out the back as well. You've got sunrooms out the back, but they're not just basic sunrooms anymore. They're properly lined. They've got power. They've got a bar inside. You know, the whole thing about lockdown has taught us is like your garden can be an actual extension of your home, and you should actually try and do that as a result of it. What's your thoughts on garden furniture?
I would, yeah, but not too much. I would probably set it up in a place which is a feature, or if it's like the sun trapped on the decking area or the barbecue area is the two areas. Anything else would probably be a bit too much. Like we have in our garden, we have our bench where the kids would probably sit if it's a sunny day and sometimes have their tea. We're in the middle of renovating it and making a barbecue area in the corner where the sun will mostly be, in a sheltered area off just behind the garage, which we're currently doing, where we're going to have the barbecue and like a little fire pit. So a couple of different areas, but not too much, because someone, for my example, buying my home would be, we have the big grassed area, which is the place for the kids to run around. So you got to find the right balance for your market.
So clearly defined areas is probably the best way to go.
Yeah, for me personally, yes.
I would, and actually, you the way you described your garden was very much as my previous one was, and what I'm hoping to create in my new one that's coming up. We had 3 kind of little spaces. So we had the morning space for sitting having the coffee, that was just like a little 2-seater couch thing. Then we had the big space where we could do the entertaining, where your family could come and enjoy. And then we had the evening space around another corner where the fire pit would go and things like that. So it's like making your garden work around the daytime clock with you as well. Yep. But not to the point where everything's rammed in a space. I mean, it's nice if you've got the luxury of that, but actually small courtyards can look fantastic as well. And it's about how you create that courtyard to work as a really nice living space, isn't it?
Lanterns.
Yes, lanterns.
Deal, eh? You know, solar powered, storm weathered lanterns that just light up. There's low maintenance. It doesn't cost you anything to run them. They just light up when you need to, and it just makes that makes that wow effect at night.
It does, and I think not just the lanterns, but you can have the chain effect lights, can't you, that you can hang from, if you've got a pergola or a fence or a stone area, is quite nice. Again, if we go back to small spaces and how you can make courtyards work, courtyards can be designed so well if you've got plants and pots and lights, and it gives you a feeling of being outdoors anyway, and actually you get lost in what you're looking at rather than the size of what you're looking at, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, we had a property on the market at Pine Grove in Ladybank, and then when you walked out the back door, they had created this like shelter area with a TV, and he had these things that he'd lit for the viewings. It's one of those like sensor things where it burns down and creates these smoky fumes off it. But he had the lights there because they wanted to do evening viewings because they had a young family. They had a seating area with a TV outside. Then he had an enclosed bit for a garden for his dogs and his children to play in as well. It was amazing how much he made use of. Quite a small space, actually.
Yeah, whereas I'm quite clinical. I've just got a couple of seats in the grassed area.
But you never take time out, Jim, so you don't need all those other things. You would never use them.
It's like, there you go. That's where the sun is. That's where we'll sit. That's about it, really. And then we'll cut the garden every now and again. I'm a big fan of low maintenance, and yet, you know, my garden's huge.
I wish I could do low maintenance, but can't afford to astroturf it. But what we've done recently, we didn't de-weed our garden for a couple of months, and it got bad. But last week I cut the grass and I de-weeded the whole sort of slabbed area. It just transforms it. It took me all day.
I've adopted the phrase wilding on my garden. If the council could get away with it, I'm getting away with it. I looked at the back the other day and I went to Elaine, oh, that looks, maybe we should let the grass grow. It looks a bit like the wilding project.
But then your cats would love that, Jim. So actually that would serve a really good purpose.
That's exactly what I thought. I thought they'd be thinking they're in the jungle half the time, because, I mean, they hide in the bushes and they go at the back of the walls and the fences and everything like that. I mean, they literally have a field day. They love it out there, and they spend all the time in the garden. They don't go anywhere else, really. It's very rare. And I kind of think the garden suits it. And that's what actually stopped us moving. I mean, we had plans to move down to Scooney. I had another house down there because we're investors and landlords, and we thought we're going to move to this house eventually. So we made plans, and we thought to ourselves, right, here we go. And then I looked at it last minute. I thought, it's not going to accommodate the cats. It's like, you know, so we're not moving. That's it, full stop. So that was a big thing for me. You know, the garden was a big thing for me, and also proximity to the main roads.
Yes.
Because it's again, it's another thing, because you know, you can't sit there and give your cat a lecture and say, remember, don't go near the main road and look both ways when you're crossing.
Wait for the green man. Yeah, but I mean, getting back to spacing, I think it's, again, we talked earlier in the discussions about the sensory thing, isn't it? And gardens create that sensory piece as well. And as Jimmy said about the barbecue, the fire pits, the lighting, making it nice in the evening, because if you've got those lights and lamps in the dark and you're sitting there and your fire glowing, again, it's that whole warmth and memory that you're triggering, isn't it?
Yeah. And that brings us nicely on to the phrases like from Steel Magnolias, if anybody remembers that. What separates us from the animals is their ability to accessorize. And there's never a truer word spoken, I suppose.
Yeah, or not accessorize in your garden's case, but anyway.
I mean, despite what you may read, you don't need to be afraid of personal photos. You know, that's what there's people out there say, oh, I don't want my personal photos to be seen and everything like that. But it's where you place them, it counts, is the most important thing. A gallery of joy in the hall and up the stairs on the landing. I mean, it's a perfect way to show your home is where somebody would spend a lot of time in happiness. You know, that's where it lives ultimately. That's what it gives it out. And it doesn't overpower a room because it's in the hall, it's on the stairway. But it actually gives that. I've seen it loads of times in properties, and it works every single time. So you don't need to overpower every room with photographs of your children. Get them on the walls and the halls and the stairwells and stuff like that. It does give that impression of joy and happiness, doesn't it?
It does, and you don't want a home to feel clinical, do you?
Yeah,
and mirrors are perfect things as well, aren't they? I mean, the extra shot of glamour, the extra light, and it will fill a bare wall, especially when it comes to halls. You know, mirrors are great for that as well, because it just gives a bit of more brightness. If you can coincide your mirror and possibly get it to catch the light from the sun, maybe coming through the door, and to reflect it back, then that's a great way to lighten up and brighten the hallway as well. What other things can we do in these areas for accessorizing? In every room, kitchens, bathrooms, living rooms, sitting rooms, hallways. You know, what can we do to accessorize, and what can we put in these places?
I would say flowers, fruit bowls, and a lot of, I think, like home baking or some stuff like that would be key things for myself. It's actually a stat that I've read recently, but the smell that most sells a house is bread. Yeah, it's fresh made bread.
Wins every time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's very interesting you make that point, because I was showing somebody Allen Cottage recently, and unbeknown to myself, although I thought I knew a lot about her seller, one of the things I didn't know is that she was actually a fabulous baker. And this particular day, I went in, and the smell of the baking, as soon as you entered the home, never mind the kitchen, you could smell the fresh cakes that she'd baked. And the lady had let them cool, and they were cooling in the oven, and the oven was sparkling clean, which again is a top tip, guys, if people are coming to see a kitchen. And the oven door was sparkling clean, so you could see right in it, and there was just this tray of cakes. And it took me back to being a kid again with Mum, when I used to kind of lick the spoon when she was making the Victoria sponges and things like that. And honestly, I wanted to open that door and just take one of the cakes out, because the smell was just so inviting and triggered so many memories. And the people that I'd taken to see the property that day commented on it as well, and it gave them that warm feeling of that house, which I think is a really important thing. Yeah.
So smells are very, very emotive. If you want a quick and easy tip, classic one for me is Home Bargains. You get the 3 or 4 air fresheners, the gel ones. They're less than £1. You just peel the back off, they peel the front off. You stick them behind doors, you stick them behind curtains, and it actually just brings the smell up of the room. Lavender is probably a classic one, and vanilla is a great one as well. These are 2 areas where we are conditioned from adverts. I'd say every single time, but I'll say it again because it is a good one. And we're conditioned from adverts like Lenore and Comfort immediately for the summer breeze and summer fresh smells. So if you can actually, if you can do that again in a home and people smell that, they immediately go back to that conditioning they've had from the adverts. It's fresh.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what it's designed to do.
Yeah, and as Angela's just commented there as well, fresh flowers are a big thing.
Yeah.
We always encourage in the kitchen and in a lounge area. So again, you may have homes that have maybe not all of the trinkets and gadgets lying around, but even having a nice table with a nice flower piece in the middle is great.
I mean, it doesn't need to be overboard, does it? It just needs to be in your local supermarket, like £2.99 for a bunch of flowers.
Yeah, go down to Aldi's. You get fantastic flowers in there for £2.39. You get roses and carnation mix. It's beautiful. I buy one every week for my home, and it's just adds that little spice of colour. I mean, you can see in the background, I'm in a rental at the moment. The background, it's very neutrally decorated, so I don't have a great deal of colour in this property. So I do it with flowers, and it makes it warm and inviting.
I love the cornicing in your house, though.
Yeah, it is lovely, isn't it?
Yeah.
It goes back to those features and the wooden doors and the wooden on the walls.
It really
as well.
is, and the paneling and everything all about it. It's quite Victorian.
It is, and it's like that all through the house. Our bedroom's the same. This building was originally the old births, deaths and marriages building in Buckhaven, and the bedroom was actually where the wedding ceremonies took place. And we go back to the bedroom space and the headboards, etc. So the headboard's probably about the same colour as this wallpaper you're seeing. So you see that against the white panelling, and it does make a statement. And I hope when we move on, the people who come here next will enjoy it as much as we have. And it's all of the features that are in it, go back to our opening gambit, that make this feel a nice place.
So when we come to bathrooms and shower rooms, you know, fluffy towels, robes, you know, go out and buy them, you know, or just put on what you or get rid of your old ones. And bath mats.
Oh no.
There you go. What's the first thing everybody thinks about bath mats? Dirt
and germs.
Yeah, and somebody's peed on them.
Yeah. And toilet mats. Oh no.
It's like, no, get rid of them. Toilet, bath mats, round the toilet, everything like that, get rid of them. Yeah. It's like they're harbour for that. That is the impression that people get. They're a harbour for germs.
And no carpet in a bathroom. People still put carpet in bathrooms. Oh God, no, that has to go. Again, it's the germ thing, isn't it? But yeah, fluffy towels. If you've got mirrors in there, make sure that they're clean and they're not got toothpaste all over them. And again, a nice smell when you go in. And again, lavender's a really nice one in bathrooms as well, because it's quite a neutral, welcoming smell.
Timber or bamboo accessories, you know, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, because it's the water connection, isn't it? It kind of evokes the kind of beach thing, and maybe having grey and pebbly coloured things. So it kind of gives that feeling of reflection when you were younger, again, going to the beach with wood and the water. It's a nice feeling, isn't it?
Candles, scented candles in the bathroom?
I'm not a big thing for candles in bathrooms, I have to say. I think they get quite dusty quickly with all the fluff from towels and things like that. So for me, that's a no, but others might like them.
But a quick clean up and light them when you've got viewers?
Yes, from that aspect, it's nice. Yeah. So having that set of fluffy towels, nice ones that never get used, that you can, your guest towels and your candles, you've got this little kit that goes into the bathroom when your viewers are happening, and then put your kit away again. Yeah. Doesn't have to be expensive.
It comes back to remembering things, and I do remember these occasions where I've been around properties where people have actually done that. They've they've put the candles on, they put the scents out, they've got the fluffy towels and everything like that. And I could vividly, I can't remember their addresses exactly, but I could remember the experience I had when going round. And I thought, wow, this is beautiful. It's like I would want to, and it made me feel so relaxed. When I was going round, it made me feel so at ease, and it made me feel quite emotive towards all that. And yet that was only accessories they used around the house in order to do that. And they could all be purchased at a cost-effective price at Home Bargains and you know, the local pound shops, really, because they all sell these sort of things now.
100%. I would say when you know you're going to have a viewing, try and not make sure the shower screen and it's not like you've just had a shower and all steamy in there. Just make sure you're wiping it down and getting the windows open and venting it properly before viewings take place. Absolutely,
yeah. So extra somethings. Pinterest is probably your best friend, isn't it? So going to Pinterest, going to Google, going to, you know, all these different platforms, and you could always talk about, and you could type in things like how to style a bathroom, how to style a bedroom, how to style a sitting room, and how to style a room with the furnishings of your choice. It's a world of inspiration when you think about it out there, and you should capitalize on that and take advantage of that, because there is people like Mary Kwando giving away free advice on how to do this. I mean, these are obviously top designers and home interiors and home furnishings, actually just telling people what to do. So why would you not want to take advantage of it? And it's all there at your fingertips.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you mentioned earlier, Jim, as well, about when you go to a hotel and you see nice things. I've done that myself. I've gone to hotels and I've thought, oh, I really like that. I'm going to do that when I get home. And it's just about these things that give you that feeling, isn't it? And that create a bit of a memory moving forward and make your house maybe a little bit more unusual. Sorry, that's my dog just coming. I got distracted there. And it's about that wow factor. But as you say, it doesn't need to be expensive. You can create it.
Yeah. So final thoughts on this then. You know, we're just wrapping up here. Final thoughts on some things about styling and well-chosen words and accessories. What's your thoughts on this?
For me, personally, I would say discuss with your agent, your buyer first, so you know who you're going to be targeting and who you're going to be staging it towards. Like, for example, I had one I've been out to a property in Cooper recently where she was like, she's got young children. She was like, I need to declutter all these things because my children's stuff that are in there and it's looking at cluttered. And I said, well, yes, to an extent, but the last two properties, I've sold the last two properties on the street, and I've sold them both to growing families. So your rooms need to be set. So there's likely to be another family that come here. So I would keep it that way, but obviously just clean and tidy and declutter, showing the space as much as you can. So just knowing your buyer and staging it to target that market, really.
Yeah, for me, it's about decluttering as well, and also remembering that whilst it is your home now, it's not going to be your home tomorrow. So the things that are passionate to you, don't worry about having to put maybe some things in a cabinet or cupboard and making it decluttered, and maybe putting some of your family photos away to declutter and things like that, because they can always come out somewhere else. And remember that this is about how you get your home ready to make that someone else's home, so you can move on to what your dream is and try and do it as best you can.
Absolutely. I mean, really, it's with some simple styling and a few well-chosen accessories from what you already own, or possibly from a shopping list, you can give your property the finishing touches to attract the right property buyers. Really, that's what it comes down to. And that could mean the difference between getting possibly an extra few £1,000s more. And a few £1,000s more could cover the costs of your move. And that's how I see it. You know, if you get another £5,000 more, it could cover the cost of another, you know, a new kitchen, a new bathroom. So it's key in order to do that, in order to get the right price. If you can't do that, you know, and you find it a struggle, then you go with what you've got. That's really what you've got to go with. And you just make it as best as possible within the means you've got as well, and the resources you've got. Really, that's what comes in it.
But people like us will be able to help them and guide them on that. And people need to realise when with their sentimental pictures or whatever, feelings lead to actions. So those pictures of your family events are at that property or in that property. If someone else sees them and feels that as well, it's going to be their home, and that's what's going to lead to offers. Perfect.
Yeah, and anything before you do anything, then speak to an estate agent. I was going to say speak to a proper estate agent. Well, you know my thoughts on some of them.
You're terrible, Jim.
Speak to a proper estate agent, somebody that knows what they're talking about, and they can give you the best advice before you actually even start that journey. Because there is often when I go around and see people's, you know, you can Latham Place as a classic example. It's like, wow, this thing's out of a magazine like Vogue. This whole place is perfect. And then she'll still say to me, should I do this, should I do that, and should I do this? And I'm like, no, it's perfect. It's exactly right. It'll tick every single box. It's amazing. So I think it's getting the right advice from the estate agent in order to, before you start the journey.
It is, and not to be too overwhelmed about that step either. You know, it can be quite an overwhelming experience buying and selling a property, but it's to put yourself in somebody's hands that are going to look after you.
Yeah, perfect. And on that note, guys, I'll see you next week. And thanks very much, everybody, for watching. If you want to ask any other questions, please feel free. Just put them in the comments, or you can message us direct. And until next week, guys, from the Fife Property Show, bye-bye for now.
Bye, everyone. Take care.